So, what if I told you that the real secret to being a successful trader has almost nothing to do with the charts, or the indicators, or all those economic reports? Today, we're going to dig into a really interesting paradox, why some of the smartest people you'll ever meet completely fail in the markets, and how the key to winning isn't about analyzing the market, it's about analyzing yourself.
Okay, let's start with a puzzle, because this is something that trips a lot of people up. You think about brilliant people, doctors, engineers, lawyers, they're at the top of their game. But then a lot of them step into the trading world, and they just get wiped out. It happens all the time. So why? What are they missing that pure brain power just can't solve?
And look, this isn't just some random idea. The author Mark Douglas, who spent his career coaching traders, he saw this happen over and over again. He pointed out that the most accomplished professionals are often the worst traders. And that tells you something really important. Maybe the very skills that make you successful out there in the real world might actually be a handicap in the markets.
To really unravel this mystery, we've got to look at the journey most traders take. It seems totally logical on the surface, but it usually leads straight into a dead end, a place we're going to call the Great Analysis Trap.
In the early days, trading analysis was all about the fundamentals, supply and demand, company earnings, that sort of thing. The goal was to build this perfectly rational model of what something was worth. But there's a huge problem with that. Markets are driven by people, and people, well, we're not always rational, are we? This creates what you could call a reality gap between what the spreadsheet says and what the price is actually doing. So that's what led to the rise of technical analysis. It doesn't even try to figure out what a company is worth. Instead, it just focuses on identifying patterns in our collective behavior, right there on the charts. It's a much better tool for an environment that's really driven by emotion.
So problem solved, right? We've got a better tool now. Well, not quite. Because even with technical analysis, a new, much sneakier problem showed up, the psychological gap. And this is that incredibly frustrating feeling when you know exactly what the chart is telling you to do, but for some reason, your hand is just frozen over the mouse. You can't pull the trigger.
And if you've ever traded, you know this feeling deep in your bones. You look at a chart after the fact and you go, oh, I knew it was going to do that. You saw the setup perfectly. So why, in that critical moment, did you hesitate? Why'd you get in too late, or maybe panic and get out way too early? The analysis was perfect, but the results just aren't there. What is going on?
Well, that frustration usually sends traders down a really destructive path. Mark Douglas calls it the analysis black hole. Here's how it works. You take a really painful loss, and your first instinct is, I just don't know enough. I need to learn more. So you go out, you find a new indicator, a new strategy, and that new knowledge, it gives you this rush, this false confidence. But then you get back in the market, and the exact same thing happens all over again, often with an even bigger loss, because you were never trying to solve the right problem.
So, if learning more and more analysis is just a trap that keeps you spinning your wheels, what's the alternative? Well, this is where we get to the real secret sauce. The unseen edge that truly separates the traders who make it from everyone else. All right, here it is. This is the main idea of this whole explainer, right here. In trading, your success has very little to do with what you know. It has everything to do with how you think. It's not about predicting the future better than anyone else. It's about having better mental discipline. It is a psychological game, and the field is the space between your ears.
So what does this winning mindset actually look like? Well, the best traders have worked hard to develop a really unique set of mental skills. They can stay disciplined and follow their plan, even when things get chaotic and uncertain. They've learned to operate from a place of confidence, not from fear. And this last one is the big one. They have trained themselves to completely accept any and all outcomes without getting emotional about it.
Let's really drill down on that last point for a minute, because honestly, this is the foundation for everything else. We have to understand what it truly means to accept the risk.
See, true risk acceptance isn't just saying the words, oh yeah, I'm okay with losing money on this trade. It's a genuine mental state. It's where you are completely, 100% at peace with any possible outcome. A win, a loss, breaking even, none of it creates an emotional spike. You're not a hopeful gambler anymore. You're just a neutral observer executing your plan. This really nails the difference. Over on the left, that's the typical trader. They put on a trade and they're just hoping it works out. They're terrified of being wrong, and every little tick that goes against them causes real emotional pain. But on the right, that's the professional. For them, a loss isn't painful. It's just a business expense. It was factored in from the start. It's just part of the game. And when you operate from that place of fear, That's when you make all the classic mistakes. The fear of losing money makes you hesitate and miss a perfect entry. The fear of missing out makes you jump the gun and get in too early. The fear of admitting you're wrong makes you hold on to a loser, praying it comes back. And the fear of giving back a little profit makes you cut your winners way too short. Every single one of these expensive errors comes from the exact same place, a failure to truly accept the risk.
Okay, to really hammer this idea home, let's use a simple but, I think, a really powerful analogy. It perfectly shows the difference between having a skill and being able to use that skill when the pressure is on.
The task is dead simple. All you have to do is walk across this plank of wood. It's 20 feet long, a foot wide. Physically speaking, pretty much everyone listening can do this without even thinking about it.
All right, now let's just change one thing, the environment. If that plank is lying on the ground, walking across it is a piece of cake. It's effortless. But what happens if we take that exact same plank, with your exact same ability to walk, and we put it between two skyscrapers 100 feet up in the air? Suddenly, for most people, the task becomes completely impossible. Your skill hasn't changed, but fear has totally paralyzed your ability to use it.
And here is the absolute key. When you're up on that plank, frozen with terror, would it help to read a book on the biomechanics of walking? Or to study the physics of balance? Of course not. That's ridiculous. Your problem isn't that you don't know enough about walking. Your problem is fear. And it's the exact same thing in trading. When you're frozen at your screen, learning another chart pattern is like studying physics on the high plank. You're trying to solve a psychological problem with an analytical solution, and it will never work.
So let's just end with this question. Going from the ground to 100 feet in the air, your technical skill, your actual ability to walk, it didn't change one bit. So what did? The only thing that changed was your internal perception of the risk. And it's the same with your trading. The real barrier to your success isn't the market, and it isn't your strategy. It's that 100-foot drop you've created in your own mind.